All right, I think we're live here. What's up, guys? Jim, Caleb, and we got, we got a good buddy here, Tall Paul from Arkansas, Mr. Thompson here. Oh man, he's a blast. He's a fun dude to meet. We had the opportunity to meet with you at a conference we were at in Florida, and gosh, it was such a fun time. And you are. You are a knowledgeable dude, so we are excited to have you. Thanks for coming on, Paul.
Yeah, I'm sure this is going to be a lot of fun.
All right, well, let's get into it. Why don't you give our audience just kind of the background, and so they can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, you bet. He introduced me as Tall Paul from Arkansas, which is not normally how I introduce myself when I'm on a podcast. But when I go to a conference, I am usually the only person from Arkansas there. And I'm slightly above average height. So it's just a good way to introduce myself so that people remember you when you go to a conference. I'm typically a pretty quiet, reserved guy. And so you have to kind of stick out somehow. So that's usually the way I introduce myself. But for the podcast here and for your listeners, I'm a engineer by training. That's where I got my education, and I was in corporate world for 15 years. Unsatisfied by that experience, so I looked for alternatives, and I found that real estate was a way that I could kind of dip my toe into the process of earning income from another source, and real estate kind of grabbed a hold of me once I kind of got a hold of all the different opportunities in real estate. I kind of became hooked, and here I am 7 years later, full-time real estate investor, lending, single family, multifamily, all that sort of thing.
Tall Paul. I never would have took you for a quiet guy when I first met you, but I think I met you at like midnight after a few drinks. So I never saw you as like being this quiet guy.
I'd warmed up already by then.
Yeah, you were warmed up. That's right. So what's your business look like today? Like, like how many, is it lean? Is it just kind of you doing your own thing? Do you have a team, or what do you got? So
it's interesting you asked that, because similar to you guys, I think I'm a few steps behind you guys, but I had an operation in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is where I operate. And I had kind of what I consider the wholesaling approach to all the marketing you do for wholesaling. And I would wholesale some, I would flip some, I would keep some, I would cherry pick the best deals for myself. And I did that for several years, and I just kind of got burned out with that whole cycle. I mean, it is a real slog, you guys probably well know, of constantly out there finding deals, looking for deals. And I was making money doing that, but I didn't really enjoy that. So what I've done is I've recently kind of retooled, and I've switched more to lending and land development plays versus going down the path of building a bigger portfolio via single family.
It's always interesting to hear like the transformation, like you got burnt out on wholesaling and flipping, and I feel like everyone just has like a cycle of where to find out what their niche is and what they're really, really passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people stick with it and they really like it because they're natural salespeople and they just love the thrill of the chase of always bringing down the deal. I was that for a while. I had that bug for a while, but then the operational reality of keeping that plate spinning all the time, I found to be a burden and was not consistent with my personality or my skill set. I'm typically kind of what you might consider a visionary, and I like big ideas, but I'm not an operator. And having the operational excellence and keeping an operator in place that didn't go off and do their own thing was not something I had a lot of success with. So instead, what I've done is I've switched over to a model that is less of the hunt and kill kind of thing, and it's just more of referrals. Like the hard money lending business, I haven't found that I have to work as hard to find my next client. I usually find a few good operators, and then I get repeat business because I do a lot of land lending in that space, and there's just a few people in the scheme of things that do land loans, and there's only so many land flippers, and they go out and do all the hustling, and then I'm effectively their business partner, their money partner. And I really enjoy that business because it's just, I don't feel like I have to work that hard. I just have to make sure I have enough capital available to deploy.
And then, so we met you through Black Card. How did that route you into going into Black Card? Was it, did you have a problem you needed to solve, I take it, in your business?
Yes, exactly. When I was going down the the path of building a business around raising capital, after a certain point, you kind of run out of capital. For first, I was using my own money, proof of concept, and then I started a process where I would bring in a few people as business partners, and they would just be capital partners and members of a LLC. And that was my proof of concept that yes, I do like this business, but I really want to scale up now. And because I was telling people that I'm sorry, I'm out of capital, and as a lender, you don't ever want to give that message out to somebody. So I went down this path of going through to create a fund. And how I met you guys is I like being in the room where I'm the dumb guy, and I feel like that group. It's a pretty penny to be in part of that group in the first place, and it attracts a pretty high level caliber of investor entrepreneur. And I just really enjoyed being in an environment where I don't have all the answers yet. I'm the noob, and I'm learning.
We lost him real quick while we're waiting for him to connect. There's something to be said about like higher level groups. And when I first started out in real estate, guys, it was like, you joined your RIA and it was $50 or $100 a month. And then now like we're learning that there's these groups that are like 40, 50 grand a year. And then they talk about groups that are 100, 150 grand a year. And at first you're like, why would I spend, 10, 15 grand to be a part of a group? And the reason you do is because the same people that can afford to be a part of that group are the people you want to get to know and network with so you can grow your business. The knowledge I got from that weekend was well worth what I felt like we spent to be a part of Black Card. And it's really interesting as you grow your business, you have to continually join these higher cost groups so you can get around higher level people. Sorry, you cut out for a second. So I was like,
fine. That was a good transition. I'm actually curious, what did you guys learn from that? I mean, what was a trip to Cancun worth for your like big takeaways? Because I have my thoughts, but I'm curious what you guys took from it.
Yeah. So Jim, if you want to take this, you totally can, or I can run.
Oh, go ahead. No, you got
So we were looking at doing much larger long-term funds. One of the things that we learned is that we're going to have a lot better success with a smaller short-term. So we can change the way the money flows, change. Each year we can change the fund instead of doing a big 3, 5, or 10-year fund, which we originally were anticipating. The other thing was some of the ways like to raise capital, the conversations we should be having and we shouldn't be having. So that definitely came out of that. And then getting to meet awesome people like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually met a few people there that were not necessarily real estate people. One guy was a crypto guy, and he ended up leaving that group, being a co-GP on a big multifamily deal. It's like, how did you pull that off?
Yeah, I enjoyed my conversations with the crypto guys and the stock guys, and in a weird way, I almost found myself hanging out with them more and like hearing about their worlds, because like the real estate world I knew a lot, but just hearing how their funds were going to structure. So that way, when I'm having conversations with people about funds, I know all the different competitors if we were raising money against. So I thought that was nice too. What were some of your big takeaways from that weekend?
So one of the biggest takeaways I got from the trip to Cancun was I was the dumbest guy in the room. Like it was table stakes to be where I was. Like a lot of people I talk to, they're impressed with where I've been and what I've accomplished. In that room, that was just like, like the minimum bar. Like, having 40 rental properties in Little Rock did not register as anything impressive in that room, which I loved.
It is. It's so cool to because I feel the same way a lot. Like I talk to a lot of people in my small world I live in, and they're like, "Oh, you guys sell X amount? Like that's so cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't feel like I'm really like." And then I go there and I'm like, "Holy shit, I'm not a big deal at all.
Right?
Like, I'm nothing. I am literally a peon in a small pond." And I came back motivated.
Me too. I came back with this feeling that I'm smart enough to do this, but I've got some work to do before I can feel like I'm at the same level as some of the people. Some of the people were young too, had done a lot of stuff, and here I'm 45 and wondering, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? But in a positive way, right? In a positive way, it was like, okay, this is. It's a fun group of people to be around, but there's a lot more in life for me to accomplish.
Yeah, it was. I know one of my goals is that eventually we're going to be able to join that big group. I can't remember what's that
called
group?
The whale
Group. How much was that a year?
75,000 a year.
75,000. I know in my heart, I want us to make enough money to where we can join the whale group, because I want to be in that group. It was like 10 people or something are allowed.
Yeah. And I'm a little pissed that I'm not qualified to be in that group. And they're so smart to set that thing out there. And like, it's like this exclusive club. And you want to be careful with FOMO, but at the same time, having a measuring stick of somebody to compare yourself to, it's like, this can be done, and this is within our capacity. They're not any smarter than we are. They've just done the work. They've just operated at a higher level than I thought I was possible of doing.
And the only way to continually raise your level is by continually changing the people that you're around.
Right. What got you here won't get you there.
Correct.
It's a constant lesson I'm having to learn. Is what I've learned back then. I've are not assumptions that I can make anymore.
Yep. There's I'm not sure if you're familiar with Keller Williams much, but there's a thing that the CEO says a lot, and it's your business grows to the extent that you do. Your business can only grow to the level that you do. And when you get like, there's another thing he talks about that I really, really like, and it's about like when you hit ceilings. Sometimes you have to come down to go back up to break through a new ceiling, and you have to come down. You maybe got to shrink your business, have some struggles, and you do a lot of like inner learning and studying and continually growing, and then boom, you break through another ceiling. And a lot of times, some of you guys who are listening, you might be beating your head against the ceiling right now. You might be busting, going boom, and like, oh, how do I get past this? And it's just that inner self-mastery that eventually is going to let you break through the next ceiling if that's what you want to do.
And and that's takes a lot to admit to yourself that you're not good enough right now. Like, okay, like what I think I know isn't enough, and I've recently gone through that. I was like, oh, okay, what I learned and what I was able to do to be involved in the businesses that I've grown so far was impressive and has its own merits, and was able to provide a good living for my family. But that's not the capacity.
Every single year around December, I always like think back about what I learned this year. And this year, like every year, almost it seems like I'm like, wow, I learned more this year than I knew. All of real estate combined, or all the business combined, I learned more this year than the last 10 years combined. And so it's kind of a cool feeling to continually just keep learning and accelerating.
Well, and that light bulb moment is what makes, for me, that's what motivates me, is having those moments where it's like, oh, okay, I just had a big discovery. I just realized that I'm playing small ball. And if I want to really grow a big business, that and hearing Bridger's dad talk, probably a billionaire, talk about the single best method to create wealth in the U.S. is the GPLP structure. That's one of the things I took away from the event was, he stayed up to 2:00 in the morning talking about that with all of us. And his dad was in the hospital somewhere back in Utah, and he stayed up with us knowing he had a flight the next morning, just sharing. And everything that he said, I was just like, I got to listen to what this guy's saying, because I don't know that much about this structure, and he's telling me it's the best method in the U.S. to grow wealth.
I've went to conferences all over the country. I go to several a year, and he was the best speaker I've ever seen. I got the most out of him. So changing the topic a little bit, subject, we were talking about this beforehand. What's your funniest story? Like, have you ever had any big mess ups, like raising capital, or any, like, give us a funny story. And then me and Jim got one.
Hey guys, for those of you that are local to St. Louis, I wanted to make sure you knew about an amazing resource that we have to help do some extra deals. You can email our team at deals@3doors.com. And just so you know, we do deals with other investors all the time. Like, it's been hundreds and hundreds over the years, and we've averaged over 100 deals with other investors per year for over the last 5 years. We can straight up buy the deal if you have a wholesale under contract that you want to sell. If you need funding to finance a flip, or like you're doing a burst strategy, we have funding available for you. If you're trying to wholesale a deal, we're doing JV wholesale deals with other wholesalers that, quite frankly, some of the deals we're putting together for a beginner or an intermediate investor, they'd probably be walking away from, because we have systems and processes, and we have buyers in place that are paying top dollar for these properties. So make sure you use this resource. And the best way to get and the easiest way is to just send us an email, deals@3doors.com. All right, back to the episode.
Give us a funny story. And then me and Jim got one.
Okay, good. I have one that's funny. So I went to it's not about raising money, but I was in preparation for being comfortable doing presentations. And so I went to a class. It was like a weekend class, pretty expensive, where you like put together your pitch deck and they teach you how to give a presentation to sell from stage. That was the whole structure of the deal. And the structure of it was they would give you this assignment, you work on it for a couple of days, and then you give a speech. But the rules of the speech were that you had to memorize the whole thing. Like you had no slides you have no cards, nothing. You just had to go up there and give a speech. And I drew the unlucky straw of going first. And I was about 2 minutes into my speech and completely lost my train of thought. Didn't know what I was going to say next. And it was the worst speaking experience you can imagine. It is like deer in the headlights. My intellect dropped from whatever it is now by half. So I had like, a 60, I could not think of what I was like, I froze. And they basically had to rescue me from the stage. And they would kind of prompted me with a few things to say. And so I kind of muddled my way through it. And then they scored me afterwards, which of course was terrible. It was the most mortifying experience ever. I went back to that class about a month later to do it again because I sucked at it so much. And I actually, the second time around, I won as the best speaker, but I had to go through that valley of failure before I realized that, okay, I got some work to do. And it was a mortifying experience.
So what's interesting is like a lot of times people let fear like cripple them or like don't do something because of it. I mean, I've had times in my life too where like I absolutely went for something and fell on my ass and it hurt. It was like hard landing. And then once you go through that experience, it's like, whoa, I'm still here.
Yep.
Oh man, you just pick yourself back up. And it's like, and there's almost like, it's like a rebuilding, but when you rebuild, it's like you're stronger, you're more powerful than you ever were before. Did you feel the same way, like with this experience of going back and then just being the number one speaker?
Yeah, I went through the crucible. Like, sometimes you have to tear yourself down before you can build yourself back up. And that was an example. I was, not even that terribly nervous about the speech. I mean, I thought I was going to do okay. But I mean, when you don't have any prompts and there's all these eyes looking back at you and they know what you're supposed to say next and you don't remember what it is, it was tough. But at the same time, they were really positive and encouraging. And they reminded you, it's like the audience doesn't know when you're giving a speech, the audience doesn't know what you're supposed to say. You can say whatever you want and they don't care because they don't know what the plan is, which is kind of unfair in this situation because everybody was professional speakers, basically giving me some sort of insight on how I was speaking, and I just bombed it. So yeah, it was a shot in the ego. It bruised my ego at first, but then I thought, well, this was like my chance. Like this, okay, like I can get through this. And the worst case scenario is that you bomb. Like no one's hurt really. Just your own ego. Move on.
I love that. It's you're only as good as the amount of times you fail. You have to fail forward.
So true.
Ours isn't near as like cool as that.
Well, tell us, share me. I'm so curious.
I mean, it's a silly one about like I'm wearing Jim's shirt and he's wearing mine because Jim was going to go to an interview in a sweatshirt today to pitch somebody. I love it.
Well, yeah. So we're signing off. We did like an 11 deal refinance, and I was like, oh, I got this meeting with this guy. I haven't met him yet. It seems like an awesome guy. We have mutual friends, and the loan officer knew the company and was like, oh my gosh, you're meeting with who? This guy is a huge deal. And then Caleb and Ryan look at me like, Jim, what the F are you wearing? Like, come on, dude. Like, you don't even have a collared shirt on. So we were like, okay, what do I do? Okay. So I called my wife. Hey, can you get up here? No, you can't. It's a half hour is too quick. So then Caleb and I.
So y'all swap shirts?
It was so funny because the lender thought we were just like trying to what was the term he kept using? I've never heard that before. He's like, are you like big shot? I don't know. He's like, you're pulling my leg. You're not really meeting with that guy. And I'm like, never heard of this dude. And Jim's got a meeting with him. He's going in his sweatshirt. So I was like, whoop, here you go. Here's the hello, Jim. And then he wanted to switch back. I'm like, me and this sweatshirt are bonded now.
Yeah. We have a connection now.
Yeah. I've been hanging out. I feel great. I'm not cold anymore. So,
I mean, hey, if you're not making a mistake, you're not taking enough action.
Yeah. I just thought it was
about that.
I thought that was really funny. The lender looking across the table and he's like, you were not meeting with that guy.
You're kidding me. So you guys have to find out who this guy is and share, like is he like a CEO of a bank or something, or like
no, the guy he met with
it's a very successful like IT company. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Big St. Louis tech company, one of the top. Yeah. So moving forward, so raising capital now, how's that going? How have you been doing? How often are you getting appointments and stuff?
Great question. So I have my historic method of raising capital has been based on kind of friends and family and kind of like their associates. And I've been raising money for a while and I've kind of tapped out my network. So I'm having to kind of really branch out and talk to people that I don't know as well, which as you're knocking down pins and going outside your circle, I used to just have like one-on-one meetings and go have margaritas and, talk shop. Well, when you've capped out that, then what do you do? And that's, I would say, what I'm figuring out. A lot of this is I'm starting to host virtual events now. I'm starting to actually market in a way that I hadn't known how to do before, where I'm actually hosting events where I'm teaching people about money. And these are like really sophisticated people that I'm teaching about money, but I am constantly surprised at how not checked in so many really wealthy people are. They have earned their wealth and their high incomes from what they do well, and they don't know about investments. They don't know about all the options to them. A lot of people have money stuck in IRAs and 401ks that they don't know that they can invest in alternative investments. And that's really helpful for my business because I'm a debt fund. So I don't have tax advantages to pass on to people with my debt fund. So that's not a pitch that I can give. But what I can say is that if you have already tax advantaged accounts that are sitting idle in your 401k IRA, did you know that you can invest that other than just the stock market? Because right now it's easy to talk against the stock market because it's not performing well. So that's kind of the angle that I've been taking lately.
So no, it's so interesting how many people only think, like, when I talk to a lot of people and I'm like, yeah, we're starting a hedge fund. They're like, what is that? I'm like, you don't know what a hedge fund is? Like, and then I'll talk to them like, well, we can get, 16, 17, 18% returns, or, we can't, like, that's where we're aiming for. And then people are like, oh no, you get, the stock market's at that. I'm like, yeah, but you need to go these alternative routes. Like, they don't teach you this in schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the plays that I'm taking now is, since I'm a debt fund, that I'm typically going to people who have quite a bit of capital to deploy, and I'm not trying to get all their capital to deploy to my fund. I'm basically making the pitch that right now, with so much volatility, is there a place in your portfolio for a consistent return that doesn't carry as a lot of risk, that is secured by a valuable piece of real estate? Is that something that you'd be interested in talking about? And I find that conversation tends to go well because they're like, oh, okay, I never really thought about that. What does that mean?
It's been really neat for me as we went through this process to learn how many ways there are to invest and how many different even structures. Like, whereas like we're a different fund structure than Paul is, there is probably 100 different structures and different ideas and everything you can think of. There's different ways to invest your money.
I mean, and it is. So when we talk about alternatives, the thing that's interesting to me is just how ingrained the financial institutions get a financial advisor, and invest in the stocks, invest in these mutual funds, and invest in all this stuff. And then they give you these reports that, I've invested for a living for 14 years. I feel like pretty good about my investment knowledge. And I try and look at some of these statements from like my account. I'm like, how do I even know what the return was?
Right.
Like, you can't even tell me what the return is. Like, so they intentionally make this so confusing when it's really not that of a confusing thing. Investing it should not be, right? It's, how much money did you put in and how much money is it worth now? Like, what's the return now? So, but anyway, so like there's all these alternatives that I think people are starting to realize now. Like there's other ways you can do it. You can invest retirement account money into real estate, for example. And that's,
Yep.
something that we both help people with. Right. So, yeah, I think it's fascinating. So hopefully that is going to start to shift more and more for people, and they start to raise their knowledge base on that. So, I mean, Paul, anything else to add on that?
Well, my thought to this is the people who might be listening to this, and I always think about what's the opportunity in the market cycle. So we know what's happening now, and I think that the precipitous rise in interest rates in an attempt to fight inflation is an opportunity for someone like me who suddenly debt is sexy again, because now there's like yields available through debt products that similar to what I'm offering that I wouldn't have been able to offer even 6 months ago. Like, so when I say prime +8 to an investor, that's actually an interesting return. Whereas before that would not have been interesting because it had been too low. And so I'm always a big fan of taking what the market gives you. And right now the market is giving someone like me, an alternative investment, a lot more wind behind its sails than it was just a few months ago.
Right. Absolutely. And it doesn't get, I mean, I'm a big real estate guy. Like there's just something about 4 walls, a roof. It's a hard asset. Mm-hmm. It's not reliant on like the whim of how people are feeling about a company.
It's not going out of style. Right? Like they're not making any more of it, and we all need it.
So where do you see yourself going? Where's 5 years from now for Paul? Where are you going to be at?
So 5 years from now, I'm 45 now, and I'll be, my youngest child will be out of school in about 6.5 years now. So my wife and I are planning for our empty nest stage. And so at that point, I plan to have grown the businesses that I'm involved in now to the point to where I'm not just financially independent, like I would probably characterize myself as now, but pretty much mega wealthy, like just more money than I know what to do with. And at that point, I don't have to run businesses anymore. I probably still will because I find them interesting, but my primary motivation won't be to boost the bottom line. It's going to be, now I'll be in the second half of my life, and what can I do interesting to society? Where can I be charitable donations, be a philanthropist, and spend most of my time traveling with my wife and then adult children, so that we can kind of see the world where I don't have this like steady schedule that I have to stick to now because my kids are still in school.
I love that. As someone who doesn't have kids yet, like I think about like what that's going to be like for me one day, and I'm like, man, it's going to be such a weird. Like I'm probably going to start having kids in the next 2 years, and then like I get 10 to 15 years, and I'm like, oh wow, then they're not going to be here.
Yeah. So Paul, Kayla made a comment this morning. Oh gosh, that person's 40. They're so old. I feel like backslap them in the face.
No,
oh, really?
Yeah, you're like people think I'm playing like that because I know one day I'm going to. I'm not calling them old. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. I'm 39 in 2 months here, so watch what you're talking to here.
I'm not hating on it. I think it's so cool that like I know that I'm going to really look forward to that part of my life.
So I got a funny story to tell you. If I'm still talking now, that happened while we were in Cancun. So we went and played volleyball, right? And so the day before we had done that excursion day, right? And I was beat from that excursion day, but I really like play volleyball. So I went and played volleyball the next day, and I never felt so old in my life than playing with a bunch of 20-year-olds playing volleyball on the beach. Because if any of you haven't ever played a lot of beach volleyball, running around on the sand is a whole different situation than running around on grass or on hard courts. And it was jungle ball. It was nothing. It was like there was no rules, and people were just flipping the ball every which way. And there was wind, and I just was like, you know what? It happened. Like this year, I turned old, and I didn't have the ability to play like at the level of that I used to play pretty competitively 10 years ago. And guess what? I'm not 35 years old anymore.
Yeah, I had to stop playing because my shoulder wigged out on me. I have a partially torn rotator cuff. I was like, I kind of tweaked it, and I was like, all right, we'll see you guys later. I'm out.
That's that. What's funny, I told my wife when I saw the schedule, I said, my goal for this whole trip is to not get injured. Like I have too many things going on, and I'm old enough now. That's something I got to think about. And getting old sucks.
I've never went to a conference that ended at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, I was exhausted.
And then at 10 a.m. the next day, you're back at it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely had a lot of fun, but I was pretty wiped out by the time it was over with.
So are you going to Salt Lake?
Yeah, I plan on it. Yeah,
Jim, we need to get that scheduled, man.
Yeah, we do.
If you're not going, I'm going.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah.
All right.
Well, hey, how do people get a hold of you if anybody wants to connect and talk?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is on my website, pauldavidthompson.com. I have the privilege of or the curse of having two common names, so I just went with my whole name, pauldavidthompson.com.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I love it. Well, thanks so much for connecting. Really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Paul. We got to have you back on.
Can't wait.
That's a wrap, guys. For additional resources, go to doorstodeals.com. And don't forget, we're already generating over $186,000 per month in passive income for people in our world. And we're just getting started, and we can help you out as well. So if you want to grow your passive income, we have multiple options available. The first step is for us to get to know each other better. Give us a call or send us over a text message at 314-310-4886 to get started. And finally, go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Till next time. Thanks for tuning into this show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock doors to deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.